Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face when you're sleeping tonight. Ever wondered how Jesus would have spent his trillions if he existed in our time? Maybe a really big house that'll occupy his millions of followers. Or maybe the best lawyers in the world to get him out of being crucified. Well, in this video, we are going to be talking about how we think Jesus would have spent his trillions if he were living amongst us today. First off, we have to start by saying that $1 trillion is a lot of money. And to really understand how Jesus would have spent his trillions, we need to first get a proper understanding of just how much money $1 trillion really is. Here's a quick visualizer. If you were to stack up $1 trillion in $100 bills from the ground up, it would get as high as about 68,000 miles into space. For reference, this is about a third of the Earth's distance to the moon. So with $3 trillion in $100 bills, you're heading for the moon. Okay, if you're not a space nerd, let us break it down into something more relatable like spending and earning. If you were to spend $1,000 every single day, it would take you 1 billion days to completely spend $1 trillion, or at least 2.7 million years. For reference, the oldest human who ever lived according to the Guinness Book of Records was Jean Calment, who lived to be just 122 years old. Now let's look at Jesus. If Jesus had $1 trillion with him on the day of his birth and spent $1 million every day since then, he still wouldn't have finished the money by now. So $1 trillion is definitely a whole lot of money. But let's say he was determined to spend the money. Here's how we think he would spend it. A world tour. In the 33 years Jesus spent on Earth and the 3.5 years he spent preaching, he never liked to stay in a place. He was always traveling. In the Bible, you always find passages talking about him moving from one place to another. In fact, when he was just 12 years old, he stayed back in a place while his parents journeyed back home because he wanted to learn from the elders there. So, it's safe to say that Jesus loved to travel both to learn and to preach what he had learned. But his traveling was limited because of the technology available to him then. With trillions and modern technology at his disposal, he would travel to every country in the world and then some. In fact, it's very possible that he would buy a spaceship just to send a tour up into space. At least for all we know, the aliens need God too. And based on what we explained about $1 trillion, it's safe to say that this is definitely not an outrageous quest. In fact, he would need to worry more about jet lag than his finances getting depleted. He lived for a total of 33 years, so he would have needed to spend around $75,000 every day to finish just $1 trillion. Plant trees all over the world. #Team Trees. There's a very interesting story about Jesus and a fig tree in the Bible. So you can understand what we're talking about, here's a quick summary. Jesus and his disciples were on a journey, of course, when Jesus spotted a fig tree. He was hungry at the time and wanted to get some fruit to eat from the tree. But he realized that there was no fruit on the tree, and so he cursed the tree. He was pretty pissed at the tree for not doing what it was meant to do, and that is, provide food. Now, for someone who likes to travel to the far ends of the earth, he would definitely encounter a lot of places where he would need to depend on trees for food, Bear Grylls style. So instead of having to curse all the trees on earth, he would simply use some of his money to plant and nurture trees all over the world. So wherever he traveled, he would always have something to quench his hunger. According to Nature.org, it costs approximately $1 to $3 to plant a tree, depending on the location and the type of tree. He still would not have spent anywhere close to $1 trillion. Give it out. One of the things Jesus was very popular for was his generosity. He loved to give. Whether it was in cash or food or whatever, he was always ready to give to the masses. There are two ways he could have done this, and the first would be to open a charity organization of his own, separate from the church. It would make sense to start up a charity organization to help people with their various needs, but with a caveat. They had to listen to him teach first, or at least while they were getting their needs met. So whatever material needs people had, they would come around and get it without having to be harassed or scared of missing out on the givings. The second option would be to just give the money out himself. One interesting story in the Bible happened like this. A certain religious man came to meet him and asked him what he must do to be saved, and Jesus told him that he had to give out all his riches and money to the poor. Although this wasn't to be interpreted literally, we are pretty sure it is something Jesus himself can do. There are just about 8 billion people in the whole world, so even if he went around handing out $100 bills to everyone in the world, he would still have around $200 million to spare. Rent out the biggest stadiums and auditoriums in the world. Everybody knows that the one thing Jesus loved to do more than anything else in the world was to talk about his Father. So that is most likely what he will spend all his time doing as he travels through all the countries of the world. And for someone like Jesus himself to host a crusade, you can imagine the number of people that would want to be at this event. Without social media, television, or even print media, he was able to gather a crowd of about 5,000 men, excluding women and children. So imagine how many people would gather now that there's social media publicity. To host his crusades, he would need to rent some of the biggest spaces around the world. Let's start with the biggest auditoriums. You have the Halls of Westphalia of Dortmund, Germany, the Sydney Opera House of Sydney, Australia, and the National Center for the Performing Arts of Beijing, China. Most of these halls can sit just over 5,000 people, except the German Hall of Westphalia that is said to sit about 16,000 persons. But even that won't be enough, so he might have to settle for stadiums instead. Stadiums like the Michigan Stadium in America and the Maracanã of Brazil can house over 100,000 people. With his massive wealth, he would have been able to rent these two stadiums at the same time without collecting gate fees or selling tickets. And he would have still been able to feed all of the attendees with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. Well guys, that is all for today's video. What do you think? How would you spend $1 trillion if you happened to stumble upon it right now? Let's hear your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to Video Bunny and join the notification squad so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.